Hello chess friends and welcome to Yazarov Chess channel and welcome to another great game from the Computer Chess Championship Bullet Madness that's going on now these days. So this Bullet Madness is a very nice tournament. The format is 2+1, so 2 minutes on the clock plus 1 second increment per move. And today I decided to show really a great game again, played by Stockfish NNUE against another top engine BlackMamba. And this game again shows really the great attacking and tactical skills by Stockfish NNUE. And the English opening was played, and the English can be sometimes a positional battle with many maneuvers of pieces, with trying to find the best squares on the board with many reposition of minor pieces. So in this game, Stockfish will never allow this game to go into a positional battle again. We'll see again a straightforward attack by NNUE. So as usual in the top engine games, we say round one and fight, of course. So I really love this voice. I would really love to see who is the face behind this Mortal Kombat voice. So I really get goosebumps when I listen to this voice. So let's check out now the game. Knight to f3 played by Stockfish NNUE, knight to f6 by BlackMamba, and we have now c4 the English, c5 the symmetrical English. And as I said, when the position is symmetrical, basically you don't have so many attacking possibilities. You have to struggle, you have to find good squares, you have to find maybe the direction of the attack is also sometimes too hard to find in these types of positions. So knight to c3, we have knight to c6, g3, g6, you see really a symmetrical position, and now d4. This is a very aggressive move because most of the times, at least when I play the English Opening, I try maybe something like d3, maybe something like bishop to g2, rook to b1, a3, and b4. This would be, I think, my setup here. Stockfish NNUE plays immediately aggressive move, is never allowing this position getting more and more simplified, getting more and more symmetrical. C takes d4, knight to d4 was played, bishop to g7, and now bishop to g2. You may already notice that here there is already this tension around the square d4. There are of course some tactical possibilities. If this knight maybe jumps to e4, then the knight on d4 could be in danger. Castling was played, and now queen to a5. Still common theory, but an early queen move can be sometimes very tricky, because the queen can be in some occasions really an object of your opponent's attack if you get your queen too early. And these types of positions Stockfish really loves. When the queen is out, of course, Stockfish will provide so many tempos against the queen. So here e3, simply fixing the position around the square d4, although you're leaving maybe some light square problems in front of your king, but I don't think that this light square weaknesses can be exploited. As the only way you can exploit these weaknesses is maybe to try a bishop to h3 move, maybe to get a queen and bishop battery and trade off the light square bishop on g2. But these are really too many tempos. You would be forced to play something like d6, queen to h5, and then maybe bishop to h3. But still, white can escape this plan even with the move rook to e1, and after a potential bishop to h3, we could maybe hide with our bishop to h1 and stay with this bishop on this very active diagonal. So this plan doesn't work for black. What black is relying in these types of positions on is simply the pawn central control. The only thing as an advantage that black has here is of course this 2 versus 1 situation in the center. So black would love maybe to get some kind of an e6 d5 pawn breakthrough, but even if that happens, then you leave also some dark square weaknesses on the queen side. So it's really tricky, this position already. I've played it many times from white and from black's perspective. So here d6, we have bishop to d2. You see that queen is getting already an object as of white's attack. The queen is already in danger because there are always this discovered attack possibilities with the move knight to d5. So queen to c5, we have knight takes c6, b takes c6. Here in this position, instead of this bishop to d2 move, I've analyzed of course what happens if knight takes c6 happens. It's not a problem, as black can escape with the rook, and now I think black is even slightly better, although down a pawn now. This dark square diagonal is very important for the dark square bishop. This pawn is endangered. You have troubles to develop your dark square bishop with b3. Then you can also face some tactical threats with knight to e4, liberating this diagonal. So it's not such an easy position here for white, although up a pawn. So as I said, bishop to d2, queen to c5, and now knight to c6. So b takes c6 was played, rook to c1. So taking the pawn is not an option because you get really a nice tactical shot, knight to d5. if you take, for instance, the pawn or move the queen somewhere else, then you see the move knight takes e7, and again it's a very, very dangerous position. First, this taking the pawn comes of course with the check, and also your pawn is on c6 is hanging, your rook is endangered. We can improve the position of the bishop with bishop to c3, then the d6 is a weakness, so simply too much activity here by white. So as I said, after the move rook to c1, here bishop to b7 was played, and now b4. Great move again. You see how the queen gets really an object of all of our attacks. If you take, of course, the pawn, it's not an option. You will get rook to b1, and you lose the bishop on the b file. So many tempos on the queen. So you see the queen has played already one time, 2 times, 3 times, and still the queen hasn't improved. Still the queen is really an object of white's attack. And again, I'm pointing you out now this long diagonal. There are always also the threats to play the move b5 and really challenging the bishop on b7. So this I'm telling you because it will play a very important role now in the continuation of the game. So a4 immediately played by Stockfish NNUE, really getting use of the pawn majority on the queen side. And if we evaluate and stop a little bit, evaluate the position, I think that's the only way that we can make progress, because we have really this 3 versus 2 situation on the queen side. So that's basically the side that we're attacking. As I said, in the English opening, sometimes it's really hard to find the direction of the attack. Where should we attack? Where should we make progress? Now it's really obvious, because these 3 pawns are really creating some dynamics on the queen side. So rook from a to b8, we have e4 attacking the queen. Again, another tempo on the queen, and again the queen hasn't improved. Basically the queen is still weird here on the square e6. Rook to e1, here rook from f to d8, and now knight to e2. Taking the pawn is again not an option. You see how Stockfish improves the position, leaves sort of the pawns hanging, but you can never really take the pawn, because after knight takes e4 you get knight to f4, and the problem is it comes with indirect attacking against the queen. You have to move the queen, and then you will lose the knight on e4. So that's why it's not an option. After the move knight to e2, we're searching again for another square. It's of course the d4. The d4 is much better, or maybe the square f4 for the knight. The knight on c3 was of course on a natural square, but now we're searching for improvements, because the knight on c3 is not doing so much. The knight on f4 or the d4 is of course much better. So queen to g4, we have h3, again another tempo. You can never really improve the position of the queen. Queen to c8, and now knight to f4. Great setup now by Stockfish NNUE. This bishop is very important, although it is a little bit passive. It is maybe blocked out temporarily, but it at least creates the support of the pawn chain here, because the pawn chain is always best to be broken in the center, and we are protecting now our very important b4 pawn, and then we want to make really pawn breakthrough with b5, maybe even a5. So queen to c7. We have a5. You don't want to, of course, allow your opponent to somehow break your position. If now, for instance, c5 happens, you again didn't improve your position, because we will simply pass through with the move b5, and still we would continue with the 2 versus 1 situation on the queen side. So here in the game, bishop to c8. Here BlackMamba is trying at least to get some kind of a support on the b file, but it is a bad choice, because now again I'm pointing out this diagonal will play this very important role, and there are also some tactical threats on the c file. The queen is really indirectly attacked by the rook on c1. So in the game, queen to a4, a nice way really to get your queen into the game, because sometimes we don't know where to place our queen. And now with the move b4 and the move a5, this is a perfect square for the queen. The queen is active, but the queen is also not endangered. That's the most important thing. Now we have the rook connection, which is very important in the chess stage. The rooks have to be connected. Now it's really trying to strike with the b5 pawn breakthrough. So knight to d7, we have rook to d1. Still Stockfish improves really the position, builds up progress, builds up really this attack. Here knight to e5, we have queen to a3. This idea is good, because this knight on e5 is basically the best minor piece of blacks. It's really centralized. It creates a nice control of the center. It creates also some counterattack possibilities. Also, it's a good defensive piece. So that's why Stockfish wants to simply get rid of the good piece. So queen to d7, knight to d3. We have queen to b7, and now knight takes e5, bishop to e5, and now king to h2. Again, simply improving the position of any piece on the board. When everything is secured, then we're striking. So bishop to d4, now comes really the move b4, so b5, pardon me. So what's the idea behind this move? Again, I'm pointing out this long diagonal is on the queen, and the e5 is also a serious threat. So here in the game, if you try something like bishop takes f2, it doesn't bring you so much. Then this e5 pawn breakthrough causes you many troubles. If you defend this, then we can simply take e takes d6. After e takes d6, we will simply play queen to b2. And the problem is now the bishop has troubles to get back and protect the dark squares. That's the main issue here. If you try something like you see bishop to c5, you get bishop to h6, and you cannot protect everything. You would be forced to play something like f6, and then maybe liberating somehow this 7th rank for the queen in order to protect your weak g7 pawn. So it's really tricky, this poison pawn here. So you cannot really take the pawn on f2. Your bishop is simply out of game. It's really incredible what Stockfish has prepared here. So queen to c7, e5, that's the pawn breakthrough motif that we have searched for. b5 and then e5. We want to create a 3 versus 1 situation. That's the main goal here. Here bishop d takes e5 was played. If you try bishop to e5, it's again not a problem. We will simply take this pawn, and if you try to trade off this very active bishop, we'll simply take. After queen takes b7, and now a6, you see we're creating further tempos. Queen to b6 doesn't help you anything, because here bishop to e3 will be played, so you would be forced to play something like queen to d7, but now bishop to e3 anyway. And now we have also some c5 pawn breakthrough motifs. We have also some b6 pawn breakthrough motifs. It's really a bad position here for black. So that's why after the move e5, d takes e5 was played, but now you see you have deflected really one pawn from the defense of the queen side. That's the main issue here. Now we have really this 3 versus 2 situation, and now we can grab this pawn. Now it's a 3 versus 1 situation. This was pathetic here by black. We'll give that really a love again.
That was
sound.
Pathetic.
This is really a winning now continuation, because this pawn majority is simply too much to handle, I think, here for black in the game. We bishop to b7, okay, we can simply trade off. And again, this idea bishop to g5, we're simply activating our bishop. You can never really take these pawns. These pawns are perfectly fine. Rook to d7 was played. Now a6, kicking away the queen, queen to c7, and now rook to d2, improving of course the position of the rook. We want to also create maybe a battery on the c file and simply push this pawn further. So king to g7, bishop to e3. It's not a bad choice here to further simplify the position, because this bishop is very well placed. It also defends here the queen side. That's why I think this is a good idea. Here rook to d8 was played, and now h4. We have h5, now rook to b2. Very nice move here by Stockfish. Rook sacrifice. The idea is of course to push simply this pawn further. We want to create really this pawn mobility. We want to create 2 connected pass pawns. That's the main goal in these types of positions. When we get maybe 2 connected pawns here on the 6th rank somewhere, and your opponent doesn't have of course a pawn, then a bishop and 2 connected pass pawns against a rook are much stronger. So here bishop takes b2, we have queen to b2, and now f6. We have finally this move c5. You see the pawns are rolling now. Rook to b1, protecting everything. Queen to b3, we have rook to c7, queen to d3. Now it's really time to push here with b6. We have e4, queen to c4, e5, and now queen to e2, rook to c8, and now finally this move b6. So king to h8, we have rook to b2, queen to a4, and now b takes a7. Very nice move. Of course, passing through here is not so good. Maybe black can secure a blockade with rook to c6 or rook to c7. So that's why, okay, now we have grabbed the pawn. Still we have three pawns on the queen side that black has to face. In the game, BlackMamba played rook to a8 and now rook to b7. Look at this rook. Very nice rook here, controlling really the 7th rank. Although black is the one that has 2 rooks on the board, but these are really 2 passive rooks. We can also try to get the queen somehow on the 7th rank and also provide some checkmate threats on the 7th rank. So king to g8, queen to d2. We have rook to d8, queen to b2, queen to c6, and now this very nice check, queen to b3, queen to d5, queen to b6. And what we want to do now is really to push this pawn. We want to play c7 and then also rook to b8. The good thing about white's position here on the king side is that this is perfectly fine. This is a firm and compact position around the king. You can never really sneak in with the queen and create some checks. The king is perfectly fine here. Even if you try to make progress with f5, f4 and similar this, it's simply too slow, because you have to, as I said, protect also your 7th rank. There are always these tactical threats in the game. Rook to c8 was played. Now rook to b8. We have queen to d8, and now of course c7, protecting everything. Everything is so compact, so glued together in the game. Queen to d7. We have now queen to b7. You see how Stockfish moves up, simply creates further and further progress. This is really a weird setup here. Queen to b7 in the game. King to f7 was played, and now simply taking one piece. And now this move, rook to b7, really forces a further trade of pieces. We're continuing the game at least with the bishop, and of course if you take, then we can even take with this pawn. So it's game over, but the game was prolonged for a little bit further. King to e7, we have queen to g8, we have rook to king to d6, now taking. And in this position BlackMamba played sort of a funny move, g5, sacrificing the queen for nothing, and here rook to d7. It's of course game over. The game was prolonged for another 3 moves, but that's not the point. This is now of course completely winning. So okay, we have, of course, we'll give that fatality. Okay, great attack played by Stockfish NNUE. Again, was really impressed by this attack. You see BlackMamba played this inaccuracies maybe with the queen too many tempos, and if you allow yourself these types of games, Stockfish will simply improve every particular piece on the board. You see Stockfish is building slowly this setup, really this aggressive setup, and then strikes back with some counter, with some attacks, with some pawn breakthrough motifs, with some rook sacrifices, with some queen sacrifices. Of course, we have seen also these types of tactics. So great attack again by the fish. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Great English opening. If you want to see more brutal attacks like this, check out my commented chess games played by computer series. Here's the link. And if you don't like maybe so much these computer games, check out my best chess games played by humans. Here's also the link. And if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.